on this? Because the biggest question is, did this just occur even to the people leading the national carrier, that they're doing this badly all of a sudden?
You know, that just explains why we should not try to compartmentalize this issue of corruption. We were just discussing a while ago about the Auditor General report. Yes, there are queries, but if we now say queries should be separated from corruption, we are only trying to talk about a serious problem in this country. I have had everybody complain about the KQ problem. It could not have happened. 26 billion could not have been lost in a span of 1 year. That has certainly been a progressive, so to speak, a progressive robbery of public funds. And there has been a KPMG which has been auditing this firm and giving and validating it all this while. Just like Weda spoke about some firms being validated, and you even talked about some being given certificate, free clearance certificate, and then later on we hear queries. We need to be very serious in this country. We really need to be tired. We actually need to say enough is enough. The KQ problem is so serious. Look at the way KQ has been buying new big jets. They have been creating routes, one of which is Vietnam. And if we were to ask ourselves today, how many Kenyans go to Vietnam? And how much business do we get from Vietnam? What has been the reason? Let us look at the procurement processes of KQ. KQ buy most of its products from Kenya. But if you check today, KQ does not buy from manufacturers. And I have never understood why public organs do not buy products directly from manufacturers. We have a company that produces tissue paper. Why do we have to go and buy, for heaven's sake, from a distributor and another business person to create business for Kenyans? Why not just make order from the manufacturer?
So for you, it's the leaders, the heads at KQ.
It's not the leaders. Let me tell you my conviction. The KQ problem goes beyond the management. I believe, let us look at today. The shares of KQ have drastically reduced. I think they are selling at 4 shillings or 5 shillings. But as we speak today, there is 1, 2, or 3 Kenyans who are aggressively buying these shares. Why don't we interrogate? Why are they buying these shares?
Doesn't that usually happen, that there are people in an industry who will understand that yes, things may be bad now, but they will recover naturally, will go into buy?
That is not true.
There's nothing like a natural recovery.
Okay, that's not natural recovery.
Is, a business has got different dynamics. It has an industry standards and competitive forces. From what KQ has done in terms of its strategy, completely from its fuel hedging and Project Mawingo, which was to expand its fleet. I think they've done 43 to 52 planes right now. It showed an aggressive expansion, exactly what happened with the Chumi, an aggressive expansion during declining revenues, which looks like a simple competency issue, but in Kenya, competency is always close to, competence and corruption are very close bedfellows. Yeah, and as opposed to what my friend says, that we should break up to describe what is incompetency and what is corruption. A lot of it is very clear and deliberate. KQ has progressively written down the value of which has blown up its books. In fact, it's a cumulative pre-tax loss now of I think 45 billion shillings. And we've had audit firms go through the books over the past. Since 2011, when they announced this fantastic strategy and how we are going to expand to different markets and all. So, from those auditors' interrogation of those books, they should have caught those losses by now. It's exactly what happened with Arthur Anderson and Enron in the U.S., where people hid a lot of stuff in the books, you know. And with the government shareholding in KQ and being a very what do you call it, and being a private company and that should have the public interest at heart, a lot of these issues should have been interrogated earlier. If you look at the KQ contracts, especially surrounding the leasing of airplanes, there are parties in foreign countries that are acting as brokers, which is a very common way of making money in Kenya in terms of corruption. If you look at the fuel hedging strategy, they are also doing it.
This is corruption that's been peddled by?
This is exactly Mumias. Okay. It is the same scenario where there's a government shareholding, and government condones and allows, it creates the same corporate culture. In fact, if I'm not wrong, the Transparency International Index on the corporate governance surrounding, corporate governance in Kenya, scored Kenya as one of the poorest, most corrupt countries.
Okay.
If anything, in the mining report, we are third last in the world in terms of doing business in extractive industry integrity.
Yes.
First and foremost, I think everybody is agreeing, both Jubilee and opposition, that KQ needs to get looked at deeply. I have a couple of comments. First and foremost, the fact that we are now challenging the KPMG audit that they have done in the past means that I don't understand why the opposition assumes that the Auditor General's report cannot be challenged. Because if you can challenge the KPMG report on KQ, why can't you challenge the Auditor General's report on government? One. Number two, because these are audits. it's an audit process.
Okay.
It's an audit process. The fact that you work for government. No, the fact that you work for government and one is a private sector.
All right.
So that's the first point. The second point, I also believe we are forgetting to appreciate the fact that KQ is a business. Government owns shares into it. KLM owns shares, and a couple of other Kenyans own shares. Why do I say this? KQ is a business that depends a lot on tourism. We have already admitted as a country that our tourism industry has been hit terribly by insecurity. Hotels are making losses at the coast. The hotel industry, the tourism industry in Kenya has made significant losses. Why is it so difficult for us to appreciate the fact that the carrier that depends on tourism is going to actually make losses? So I feel...
Does the carrier depend on tourism, really?
A lot of that. A lot of the
you have the connectivity flights happening and business, but you also have these other routes. That's why the issue was you procure Dreamliners, which are to do this far-flung sort of route, which then would bring in that kind of money, but then you get them before you have those routes approved. So in terms of the bulk of the money, it is from, apparently it appears from some of the analysts, it is poor decisions at management level. There was poor decisions at management level, but then part of the problem, and he said KQ got into a very aggressive expansion plan. A lot of the decision of that expansion plan was based on trying to project a growing. When you start looking for routes, you're assuming that you're going to get how do you call it? Like a sponge of business, and then at the same time, because we are all in business.
There's no business
at level or because people forget. I also run a business.
Yeah.
Some of the decisions you make, you will make decisions that lead you into losses, which is I'm talking about competence, or even just the business environment in which you're living in. You have things that you can control, there are things you cannot control. What we need to do with KQ before we start shooting down people is we need to actually first go back and understand the decision-making process of KQ. Audit the process. How did we get here? Let's also appreciate the fact that businesses will make losses and businesses are going to make profits. Okay. That's just the way the world goes.
Let's listen from Weda, then I'll come back to you, please.
Yes. I think KQ has had problems with the insecurity in this country. The travel adversaries have a percentage contribution. Secondly, corruption also has a contribution. Then thirdly, there is the gerrymandering in management, where things look rosy, and then people are celebrated, then they leave office, then it explodes. The Mumias, you can see when some people are leading this institution, they were doing very well. When things come up later, it is like things were very bad. I recall about 3 years ago, I wanted to invest in shares of that institution, Kenya Airways, and somebody told me this is a bomb waiting to happen. Don't put your money there. He didn't give me any statistics, he didn't. But out of those rumors, I stepped back. So it is an endemic problem which has been running for very long. And it is a part of those three things. It's those three things that we said. But going forward, I think we'll have to bail out KQ.
Do we bail out, Dr.?
We lend. It's not bailing out. Bailing out is a opposition talk. It is actually lending more money, which will be repaid. Government will get more shares, and actually for Kenyans, this is the time. If I had money, If I was a sugar baron, today is the time I would have put in more money in terms of shares, because they say that you buy when blood is flowing in the streets.
Or do you then reverse from privatization, take it back to government? Is that also a possible
Can I say
solution?
something?
No. Sorry,
that would send a terrible message to the private sector.
Okay.
Nationalization is a concept that exists, and it has been overtaken by its time. I think when it comes to the government bailout, which is an impending bailout, it's going to happen. KQ has an asset value, if I'm not wrong, of about 300 billion shillings, and a debt portfolio of 150 billion shillings, which has been extended right now by an extra 20 billion shillings from the Afri Exim Bank in Cairo.
Yeah.
They're borrowing this money to help this out. And they say they're going to sell, I think, 7 old planes, if I'm not wrong, to plug in the difference. But part of KQ's problem is not, there's a concept of moral hazard, where the management knows something that the people don't know. Part of KQ's problem is not the debt portfolio. If we start putting our money in KQ now as a government, trying to help KQ stand up, it won't be long before you have to save KQ entirely. There's no change in corporate culture, there's no change in best practices, there's no change in strategy.
Yeah.
Because even with the loan they've taken from the African Exim Bank, we have another layout
of how that money will
be spent.